Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reganelite's Global News, episode 91, where we look at news from outside the UK. We've got 5 stories, and then we're just going to have a look at some stuff from the Kiev Independent tonight, is what I have for you guys. Mainly because some of the bigger stories aren't really going to happen until a bit later on tonight, unfortunately, but there are still interesting stories to look at today that I do want to touch on. We also have one funny video in between the intervals as well, and we also got the funny memes that we do on this live stream, in particular at the end of the show, to look forward to. So if you're a fan of funny memes and maybe a bit of a funny voice and whatnot from me, then you can look forward to that at the end of the show as well. The maximum we go is about an hour and a half, something like that. But I hope you guys find today's show interesting, fascinating, informative in some way, shape, or forms. Also, a reminder that we are live on youtube.com/Reganelite, and we're also on twitch.tv/Reganelite1, just for reference there as well. We have just one super chat goal just for today, minimum £5. If we hit it, that's great. If we don't, it's not the end of the world, to be fair, because we had some very, very generous people this morning on the Good Morning Show. So just one super chat if we can make it today. If not, again, not the biggest of deals, because we already had some very generous people this morning on the Good Morning Show. Just want to say good morning, good evening, or afternoon/evening. It's afternoon to some people still. Pete's Music and Stephen Banker, who are both there in the chats. Good to see you both. Hope you guys are doing well. And anybody else who may be lurking in the chats. This is the live stream. I tend to call it the quiet one because we don't get many people here in the chat. It's normally quite quiet, this one. So I want to start with this one because this is essentially happening at the moment as we speak. So we'll have to wait and see more about this later on, guys. So the House is poised to pass a bill to force the release of the Epstein files in a bipartisan vote. The vote comes after Trump reversed his course and encouraged House Republicans to support the measure he had previously opposed. So the word on the street is what I'm hearing is that is quite a bit of it has been they are scrubbing Trump's name out of not everything out of the Epstein files, but the things that he may have done. The rumor mill, and I do say rumor mill because this is from a few. I do say it's a rumor. The story is that we know Trump is in the Epstein files. We already confirmed that. The question is whether he did anything, and that is the good question. And the rumor mill is that he has done some nasty things, and what they are doing is scrubbing his name out of the most nasty of things in order to avoid too much scrutiny when it comes out. That's the rumor mill, and that's why Trump is kind of reversing course, so that this is the only, because in his mind and in the administration's eyes, the only way to get past this now is to release it. However, the caveat, of course, is the other talk is that the other story as well is not just trying to redact Trump in some names. Some names are trying to be redacted as well. There are some powerful figures who are wanting their names redacted as well, as in like either the documents disappearing or their names just coming off and whatnot, which could be quite detrimental, that is for sure. This is the lengths that they are going to try and cover people up. This is all rumor mill, I have to stress, so it's nothing confirmed here. Good evening, Jao. Hope you are doing well, one of our moderators. I would like it completely released with no redacted and no cover-ups and names and whatnot, but I don't think we're going to get that. Now, if they do release the Epstein files and there's a lot of names that are like either blanked out or we don't know about and whatnot, there'll be a lot of anger, and there will be conspiracy theories will start running wild over who is and who isn't in the Epstein files. That story will just keep running and running and running. So even if, you release it all and you don't give all the information out there, it's still going to run. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think the main reason that Trump is changing course is because he can't get away from this. So his option is get my name scrubbed out of the worst of things. The worst of things. Get my name scrubbed out the worst of things. Anything that makes me think I've done or say or done anything, get me out of it, basically. That is why why they think have changed turns, because at this point you can't get away from this. This has to come out. So the House is poised to vote overwhelmingly today for the legislation to compel the Justice Department to release all its records related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, a major victory for the lawmakers in both parties who've both been leading the push for months. Where were the Democrats when they were in power? Answers on a postcard, please. The measure, which last week secured enough bipartisan support to head straight to the House floor, got another boost over the weekend when President Donald Trump reversed his position and urged Republicans to support it. The bipartisan duo who co-authored the legislation, Representative Thomas Massie, Republican, and Ron Kunda of California, are working to secure a veto-proof majority in the House, and they predict as many as 100 Republicans could vote for it. The number could climb even higher now that Trump has given his blessing. Almost everybody will vote for it. House Majority Whip Tom Emmerd Armin had told NBC News, adding that leaders aren't telling members how to vote. Such a lopsided vote would put enormous pressure on the Republican-controlled Senate to act on the measure. Here's the thing, and one of the big things as well you have to remember is if you don't vote to release the Epstein files, you'll be covering up a sex offender here, a child sex offender. So you kind of like it. It really makes sense for you not to be fair. James, good evening to you. Hope you are doing well there. Let me just switch my settings to all messages just so I can see everyone. Just sometimes because it sets on top messages, so sometimes I don't see all messages there. Just think politically, Republicans need to look past 2028 and wonder if they want this on their records for the rest of their political careers. Yeah, yeah, because people will remember this. People will aren't you the one that voted no on the Epstein files? Why should I vote for you? Kana said he and Maisie will hold a news conference with Epstein survivors Tuesday morning, where they will ask for Trump to meet with the survivors. I don't know if that's happening or if that's already happened. GOP leaders in the Senate say they are all for transparency when it comes to Epstein, but they haven't received whether they'll bring the bill to the floor. We'll see if they send someone to the Senate, and if they do, we'll look at it. Majority Whip John Battistone said on Sunday on NBC News Meet the Press, but we want transparency and accountability. Momentum on the Epstein discharge position was building in the House, which allowed rank-and-file members to circumvent leadership and force a vote. All House Democrats are on board after Republican Alexandria Garvelia of Arizona was sworn in to become the 218th lawmaker to sign the discharge position to force a vote. A deluge of Republicans began announcing that they would vote in favor of it once it came to the floor. Trump and the White House have worked behind the scenes to stop the effort, trying to pressure a handful of GOP women to drop the petition. And on Friday, Trump directed Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate Epstein ties to prominent Democrats and financial institutions. But with the writing on the wall, Trump abruptly reversed course Sunday night, posting on Truth Social that House Republicans should vote for the bill. Speaking to reporters on Monday, Trump, who had supported releasing the Epstein files before his re-election last year, vowed to sign the legislation should it reach his desk, which he said would allow the GOP to turn the page on the nagging issue and focus on the economy. Some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, but they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all, Trump said in the Oval Office. Okay, doesn't change the fact that you were still in the files, Trump. What I don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party, including the fact that the Democrats are totally to blame for the shutdown. He continued. Unfortunately, the Democrats have to take some of the blame because they're the ones who reversed it. Well, Democratic senators in particular. A conservative Trump ally in the House told NBC News that Republicans have been widely frustrated with the White House's dismissive handling of the Epstein saga and have privately encouraged it to shift strategy, which was communicated as recently as Friday, days before Trump flipped on the issue. The White House also warned that there would be mass Republican defections on the House floor. The Justice Department has already turned over tens of thousands of documents from the Epstein investigation to the House Oversight Committee, which is conducting its own probe and has made many of those records public. In addition, Democrats on the Oversight Committee released a series of emails last week from Epstein's to an associate Ghislaine Maxwell, journalist Michael Wolff, that referred to Trump, which Epstein estate turned over in response to a subpoena. In one 2019 email, Epstein wrote of Trump, of course he knew of the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop, but he didn't accuse Trump of any wrongdoing. And that's the key thing. As the key thing is actually finding something that Trump has done wrongdoing here. And this is why I think, they will try to cover those parts up if he has. Trump has consistently denied involvement of any Epstein crimes, and the two men have socialized in the 1980s and the 1990s, including at a 1992 party at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, where video shows them discussing women. When Trump and Epstein had a falling out in the 2000s, when Trump accused Epstein of hiring away girls and young women from his resource spa, Trump said he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago. In 2008, Epstein pledged guilty to Florida state charges of solidifying prostitution with a minor. In July 2019, the Justice Department charged him with sex trafficking of minors. A month later, authorities said Epstein killed himself in his jail cell while he was awaiting trial. The House Epstein bill will require the Attorney General to release in a searchable or downloadable format all unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigation materials related to Epstein and his co-conspirator Maxwell, flight logs, or travel records, people and entities connected with Epstein, and internal emails. Note that other internal Justice Department communications. Those records will need to be released not later than 30 days after enactment of the law. Legislation says that Bondi may withhold or redact any information that identifies victims or would jeopardize an active federal investigation. So this is an important point as well. So there are certain victims who obviously do not want their names being put out there, which are obviously going to be redacted for their own protection as well. So that's the first thing as well. One's about active investigations. Now, that obviously means that there's going to be some people in there who are going to be redacted regardless because they are in an active investigation. It's possible that some of them may be in a federal investigation that we don't know about, that may be behind closed doors possibly as well there. House Speaker Mike Johnson has argued for months that the Epstein legislation isn't needed because the Oversight Committee has been investigating the matter and releasing thousands of documents to the public. He dodged questions on Monday about Trump's about-face and his convictions with the president. Conversations with the president, and he said, quote, he never had anything to hide. He and I had the same concerns, and we want to ensure that victims of these horrendous crimes are completely protected from disclosure. Those who do not want their names out there, Johnson told reporters, I'm not sure the discharge position does that, and that's part of the problem. Yeah, sure, Mike. Sure. I'm sure you care so dearly about this. He's a scumbag, Mike Johnson. Don't take anything he says seriously. Look, we'll see, like, the next day or two. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about this tomorrow to see how far this is going to go. I think it's going to pass the House comfortably. Whether or not it's going to pass the Senate, that's another question, of course, because it's entirely possible that people within the Senate could be jeopardized. Possibly, it's possible, because again, we don't know who is and who isn't all in these files, but. Are we going to get the full release? I'm still, like, even with all this progress being made, I'm still very skeptical. I feel like there's going to be some kind of cover-up of some sorts here. I really do feel like it's not all going to be as simple as we think. Chris Fisher, good to see you there. Hope you are doing well. Jal says the damage is done and the Epstein files are not a replacement for Democrats' lack of political courage. But like I said before, the Americans, most of them, lack the culture to fight for your rights. Yeah. As the Europeans us do. So Trump now says he wants to release the files and says they were fake news to be released. Yeah, unfortunately. Oddly or not, this is one of the typical behaviors of authoritarian regimes, spread doubt to enforce the narrative. Yeah, I mean, there were just too many people that just wanted this out, you know. America is the country I take the least seriously globally. Well, considering its president, I don't blame you for saying that, Chris. I don't blame you. Billy Kershaw, good to see you there. Hope you are doing well. So, yeah. We'll see. I'm sure we're going to talk about this tomorrow evening. We might even we'll probably touch on it tomorrow on the Good Morning Show as well, to be fair. We probably will touch on it there as well. The next story I've got for you guys is from Al Jazeera. You know, I guess, you know, Donald Trump's, you know, and the Trump administration, you know, we've been doing plenty of strikes in the Caribbean, you know, targeting lots of so-called drug trafficking boats. But, you know, it's not really enough for them. It's not enough to satisfy Trump and his big fat ego. What's next year for Donald Trump? So he says the U.S. may strike Mexican drug cartels next after boat attacks. U.S. President Donald Trump says he has been speaking with Mexico about a potential military intervention. I am pretty confident that the Mexican president, she will, I can't remember her name, but she will not be wanting American intervention inside her country. I understand that we've covered, I think it was a couple of weeks ago on the Snowflake conflict, we looked at a bit of a detailed video, a fascinating video about just how deep-rooted corruption and the cartel are in Mexico. And even if the US military went in with its entire army working alongside the Mexicans to kind of lock down the entire country, just say hypothetically, right? It still would not be enough to stop the cartel. It would turn if it wasn't already a war zone, it would turn into a massacre. You would have literally streets. Every single street in Mexico would be gunfire constantly over this. So, yeah, I just don't think this is happening. I just think this is a waffle from Donald Trump. You know, we're still waiting for him to annex Greenland because he said he was going to do that, but I don't know when he's going to do that. The Americans do not even want American tourists to visit. I disagree. I literally, so there are still, I know some Americans who still go and visit Mexico, and they don't have any issues. So, so that's not technically true. I would say Americans who have a problem with immigration, those are the kind of people they probably don't want coming to Mexico. Because remember, that it's really important to emphasize that their anger is always at the government and never the people. But however, we also have to remember that the people did vote for the government as well. So, anyways, let's carry on. So, US President Donald Trump says he may expand his unprecedented strikes against Latin American drug cartels to include Mexico, the Reuters news agency, and the TV network NBC News reports. Right. So he says, quote, "Would I launch strikes in Mexico to stop the drugs? It's okay with me. Excuse me. I've been speaking to Mexico. They know how I stand," he told reporters at the Oval Office on Monday. I feel like he's just saying that, and basically, you know, she was probably just nodding her head, saying like, We're losing hundreds of thousands of people to drugs, so now we stop the waterways, but we know every route. Yeah, a lot of Mexico is not safe. I'm not implying that. I'm not implying that it's okay, but there's still Americans still visiting Mexico. I have confirmed from a couple of Americans. Who travel over and back. I'm not saying that what you're saying is not true. There are some who are not welcome, but there are still Americans still visiting, just probably not as much. Trump did not say how or when such strikes could take place. Mexican President Claudia, I can't say her surname, I'm just going to say Claudia just for our sake, has previously stated her opposition of any such attacks on her country's soil, of course. Jeff Garmany, an associate professor of Latin American Studies at the University of Melbourne, told Al Jazeera opposition from Mexico City may fall on deaf ears. Quote, "There are several legal hurdles standing in the way, some of which are domestic and others of which are international. There are also basic protocols of international diplomacy that, while perhaps not bound by law, are generally respected by UN state members," he said. Well, obviously, international laws doesn't really apply, really, because Israel are allowed to get away with everything, so why can't the US? Oh, wait, US are already doing that because they're targeting boats in the Caribbean, which isn't in US waters, which, by the way, they have not verified they've not verified in any way, shape, or form that those boats are definitely drug cartels and definitely not potentially innocent people who could be fishermen. They've not provided any information whatsoever apart from some pictures from above. Oh no, we don't know if they're innocent, or we need to know who these people are. No. Shoot first, ask questions later. That's their policy. But nothing about Trump's second presidency suggests he would adhere to these laws and protocols. So no, I'd be surprised if Trump would wait for President Claudia's sign-off. If he really wants to carry out strikes in Mexico, he continued. Yeah, if he wanted to do it, he would do it, and it would piss off the Mexicans a lot, which would be very bad for America's economy as well. Because there's a very important relationship there, and they need to keep it happy. Because the last thing you want is Mexico basically knocking the door for the wall down and saying, "Go, you can run straight through." You know, Mexico are paid a lot of money by America. Trump's remarks comes 2 weeks after NBC quoted two government officials reporting that the White House was preparing for the early stages of ground operation in Mexico that would be jointly run with U.S. intelligence agencies. The report said the operation would focus on drone strikes against drug labs in Mexico and cartel members. In his remarks on Monday at the White House, Trump suggested the U.S. already has a short list of targets. Quote, "We know every route. We know the addresses of every drug lord," Trump told reporters. "We know their addresses. We know their front doors. We know everything about every one of them." If that's so true, why has Mexico not responded? Or it might be because some of them have links here to the government, the Mexican government as well. He described the situation as like a war because cartels were killing hundreds of thousands of Americans with drugs like cocaine, heroin, and others. Garmani told Al Jazeera that US strikes in Mexico could likely amount to very little due to the strength of the cartels there. As I said, we covered it on a few weeks back on the Snowflake conflict, just how powerful the cartels are. The Mexican government itself has been embroiled in long-running and deadly conflict after declaring a war on drugs 20 years ago. Mexico's cartels are some of the strongest and most organized criminal organizations in the world. They have excessive resources and occupy a unique geographic position, lying between the US and the rest of Latin America. Carrying out target military strikes would be more of a PR stunt than anything else. It won't stop one of the world's most lucrative illegal supply chains, he said. Since retaking office in January, Trump has used excessive executive orders and legal loopholes to justify military action against drug cartels without the approval of Congress, which is bollocks. They include designating 6 drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which means the White House can justify military strikes as a matter of national security. It is not a matter of national security to stop drugs coming into your country. Maybe if Russia were, I don't know, putting nuclear weapons in Cuba, that might be a bit of a different story. Hence the Cuban Missile Crisis several decades ago. That was obviously something different there. But yeah, this is not a matter. I don't think drugs are considered a matter of national security. I'm just going to say that. I just think so. Since September, the White House has launched at least 20 strikes on boats it is said were transporting drugs in the Caribbean and the Pacific, killing at least 80 people, although it's yet to provide public evidence of their ties to drug cartels like Venezuela's Tren de Aragua. The Trump administration said the strikes are a non-international armed conflict. Non-international. Well, what are you doing it in? International waters? Oh no, in the Caribbean waters. Are they your waters? No. Okay, so what were you doing then? It's non-international armed conflict. Okay, sure. Okay, sure. Aimed at narco-terrorists, unlawful combatants. Like, have you shown any footage of them firing back at you or anything like that? You know, no? Okay. Receiving a controversial concept first conned by President George W. Bush war on terror to justify actions against groups like Al-Qaeda. Yeah. Look, I'm going to be serious. I don't think this is going to happen. I think this is just word salad again from Donald Trump. The same word salad where he talked about doing actual strikes inside Venezuela. There's been talks about that as well. I think it's word salad. I think it'd be very, very dangerous to do such a thing already. They're not Israel, although they like to think they're Israel because they do bully the world anyway to a certain extent. I don't think they will do this. I don't think the Trump administration will do that, but I could be entirely shot in the face, by the next day, because the things that come out of Trump's mouth, you have to take everything with a pinch of salt because he'll forget the next day, He's probably forgotten all about Greenland, and if you ask him where it is on the map, he probably wouldn't even know where it is. USA only needs to be smart enough to work to pay taxes, but not smart enough to ask why they are funding the military complex as Pete's music. Jao says, so if I was Trump, I would not talk about striking cartels in Mexico. What's next? Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah. It's a hornet's nest. Like, they're so embedded now. You just... Like, they've been there for decades and decades and decades. You can't undo it, I honestly, I wish I knew there was a way to break the cartel's grip in Mexico. I honestly don't know how they can do it. I just honestly don't know how. I wish, there was a way they could do it. And I feel for the Mexican people because it's a never-ending cycle for a lot of them. I wish there was a way out for them. A way out of it. Chris Fisher says most people, when they want to solve a problem, they go to the root of the problem with drugs in America is the fact that society is failing the people. The problem is at home, not abroad. Yeah, the problem is at home, not abroad. England does the same thing, blames others for its problems. It is a society of home creating folks addicted to drugs. As the issue is generated by supply. The wider rest of the world is not nearly as bad as the US. It's a societal issue which was fixed at home, not fixed by committing murder in international waters, a war crime, says Chris Fisher. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Pete's Music says, should remember Vietnam. How hard would it be to beat them? Too hard, apparently. They got their asses kicked right out there. So many Americans. It was one of the most pointless, it's just like the Ukraine war, a needless war that did not need to happen. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, the Vietnam War. A scar on America. A real big scar on them. Going back to the Associated Press here, guys. Women's rights getting fumbled away even more. South Carolina South Carolina looking to make life worse for women. So a group of South Carolina lawmakers are looking at the most restrictive abortion bill in the US. The punishment, I think, is so brutal. So brutal on people who go for an abortion. It's so cruel. And these people are really like... I mean, it's just reproductive rights are human rights, but women should have a choice, and they don't. And these people do not want women to have a choice. I just think it's terrible. Abortion is murder. It's not murder. It's their body, their choice, and it really does. I really don't understand how women don't see the other side of this. I look at this and I look at these women and I realize, like, do you not understand that some women are in these positions of no fault of their own? Do you not understand that? Like, you don't look at the fact that this is someone else, this is their life and their choice, and you don't want to give them that. You want to take away their own rights away. Like, you understand you're abolishing your own rights as a human being. Like I'm trying. Like, I wish I could understand why they feel this way, but it's all down to, again, religion, because of what God taught them. When a baby is created inside a womb, when it's an ovary, that's it. It's an immediate life, and you must look after that precious life, no matter what. Even if you've been raped, whatever happened to it, no, you must look after it. Well, what about that, Paul? What, even if it's a 16, 17-year-old, doesn't matter. I just wish they would look at the other side of the coin for this. I really do. So, a bill that would allow judges to sentence women who get abortions to decades in prison. Decades. What are we talking? 10, 20, 30 years in prison for getting an abortion. And could restrict the use of IUDs and in vertigo fertilization before a small group of South Carolina senators on Tuesday. That's today. This would be the first of at least half a dozen legislation steps for the proposal that includes the strictest abortion prohibitions and punishments in the nation. The subcommittee of the state's Senate's Medical Affairs Committee can change it Tuesday afternoon, and even if it's approved, the prospects are doubtful at best. But even at this stage, the bill has gone further than any other such proposal across the US since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022, opening the door for states to implement abortion bans. The proposal would ban all abortions unless the woman's life is threatened. So unless you are actually going to die from having this child, that is the only circumstances in which you can have the abortion. That's the only situation. All other situations then. So currently state law bans abortions after cardiac activity is detected, which is typically 6 weeks into a pregnancy. Before many women know they are pregnant, current laws also allow abortions for rape and incest victims for up to 12 weeks. Are you banning that? Are you taking that away? So you're basically saying, if you've had incest victims or rape. No, it's a different story there as well. Is that the case? The proposal will also do things that aren't being done in any other state. Women who get an abortion and anyone who could help them could face up to 30 years in prison. Wow. If you actually try to help someone get an abortion, they could face 30 years in prison. It appears to ban any contraception that prevents a fertilized egg from implanting, which would ban inoculate devices which could limit in vertical fertilization. Providing information about abortions would be illegal, leaving doctors worried they couldn't suggest places where the procedure is legal. This is where most women in this situation would turn to Google and look for Google for their help in this situation, because they can't ask their doctor. So they will turn to Google, and they may even try to order certain things online to get it shipped to their home as well, potentially, which could put them in serious jeopardy as well, because they can't speak to an expert about it. Again, going onto the black market instead of into the US economy. Republican Senator Richard Cash, who sponsors the bill and one of the Senate's most strident voices against abortion, will run Tuesday's subcommittee. He acknowledged that problems last month with potentially banning contraception and restricting the advice doctors can give patients, but he has given no indication what changes he and the rest of the subcommittee might support. 6 of the 9 members are Republicans. Abortion remains an unsettled issue in conservative states, and how much more to restrict it is fracturing anti-abortion groups. South Carolina's Citizens of Life, one of the state's largest and oldest opponents of abortion, issued a statement last month saying it can't support Cash's bill because women who get abortions are victims too and shouldn't be punished. Women who get abortions are victims too and shouldn't be punished, yeah. On the other side, at least for the bill, groups like Equal Protection South Carolina, abortion is murder and should be treated as such, says the founder Mark Corral said. So they're getting attacked on both sides on this bill. Interesting. Interesting. Yes. Obviously, it's nowhere near passing, but this is not going away, I'm afraid. Yeah, it's not going away at all. Very scary indeed. Allowing abortion reduces the number of abortions in Portugal. Just think about it. What a lack of respect for women. Yeah. Going back to medieval. I know. The thing is that, again, like, people will just turn to the black market. They'll use their internet. What's next? Are we going to spy on people to make sure that they're not looking up ways to get to a clinic, or like to drive or fly out somewhere, you know, to get the abortion and whatnot. Like, it's going to be like, the thing is, like, I just find the whole thing I'll have to look at that in a second. Yeah, I mean, it's very concerning indeed. So, guys, going to take a short break here. Got a funny video for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this funny one here. This one is from Garen. It's a different one from Garen. Don't worry, it's not the same one, guys. And this one is called an American in an Irish supermarket. So, you know, what could possibly go wrong here, guys? What could possibly go wrong with an American in an Irish supermarket? Well, let's find out then. Shall we?
Let us look upon some Americans in Ireland. Fabulous.
Why aren't eggs refrigerated?
In America, for some reason, you clean your eggs. Here, the eggs come right out of the arse of the chicken. They're a lovely tan brown colour, and you're allowed to leave them wherever you want.
You know what? None of these are sugary cereal.
Chocolate chip Weetabix, Frosties, Cocoa Pops, Frosted Shreddies. What do you think frosted means? They're very, very cold. These are sugary cereals.
Look at these sodas. Fanta.
I've had Fanta in America. It's the most unsettling orange colour. It doesn't look like orange at all. It's like an extreme version of orange. It's like the colour that orange would be forced to be at gunpoint if it was a prisoner of war.
These are illegal in America.
Because you're not able to eat them without choking yourself or something. Just a tip, if you want to get Kinder Surprises back, that little plastic egg in the middle, you are not supposed to breathe that in under any circumstances. They made Kinder Joy eggs so that they could be fed to Americans. They don't have that dangerous plastic ball in the middle.
Sell cell phones at the grocery store?
To be fair, okay, we may sell phones at Tesco, but literally only people who sell narcotics buy phones from Tesco. Like, if you buy a phone from Tesco, you've either just gotten out of prison Or, well, there really isn't another circumstance where you'd buy a phone from Tesco.
These are the cutest little tomatoes.
It's pronounced tomato and stay delicious. Let us
uh, oh, you gotta laugh, guys. You gotta laugh. Oh dear, oh dear. Oops, last post was not a dig at chat. I'm sure it wasn't. A room of men discussing women's issues. Anyone, what's wrong with that? No, we're talking about it in a constructive manner. And it's a live stream here. So, no. I think, you know, yeah, of course, like, I do think it's, like, for me, like, there needs to be a balance, you know. And the balance is that women should be able to make the decision for themselves, you know. I believe in life. I really do. But I also believe that the women should be able to choose what they want to do with their body. It should be down to them to make that conscious decision. I don't believe that the state or anyone else or God or anybody else should decide for someone else what they can and can't do with their body with what's inside their damn body. That's my general belief. And that's my principles that I stand on. I just feel for me on this subject that it should not be up to any government or any state or any politician or anybody with any religious views to be deciding what other people should be allowed to do with their bodies when it comes to abortion, when it comes to it. You know, that's just my position. I generally believe that. Some people will disagree. I think most people in the chat here agree with me on that. That's kind of my position on it. And I don't think it's wrong. Yeah, I don't think there's any women in the chat in this live stream. But I think if any were, they obviously can make their comments in the live stream after. That's for sure. If they don't. And just a reminder, guys, we've got a couple more stories to go in. Guys, if you want to, if you haven't already, please hit that like button, share it across social media, subscribe if you haven't to already as well. We've got just one super chat. If we can make it today, it would be great if we can. It is a minimum of £5, but if we hit it, it'd be great. If not, it's not the end of the world because we already had some very wonderful, generous people on the Good Morning Show this morning. But if we hit it, it'll be a bonus indeed. So, but if not, do consider becoming a YouTube member. You also get access to custom emojis. You also get access to early content, additional content, as well as you get access to members community posts where you get a picture of Daisy or Dolly or Jasper. And that's the best thing about being a YouTube member is getting to see pictures of the cats, because that's one of the coolest things about being a member of the YouTube channel. So do consider that for sure. So guys, let's continue on here. So I touched on this on Monday, Good Morning Show here, unfortunately. And yeah, it's not very good, guys. So one Israeli has been killed and 3 wounded in West Bank stabbing as the United Nations approves Trump's Gaza plan. So unfortunately, the United Nations did give the thumbs up on approval to Donald Trump's Gaza plan, which is which I think is a terrible and devastating situation here. And it's really, really sad to say the least. This means that I covered it in an opinion piece on Rumble, is that this is going to be kind of like the Britain owning Palestine, controlling Palestine. The only difference is that instead of Britain, it's going to be the US being ordered around by Israel. This does not do anything, this plan, to give the Palestinian people their rights. They will not have a say in the reconstruction of their city. And it also means that there is no indefinite date for when Israeli soldiers can leave the Gaza Strip. There's supposed to be, it's in the ceasefire agreement that they will leave the Gaza Strip. It doesn't say when. And there's nothing in this plan that sets a date for when that is happening as well. So that means that Israelis are going to be there. Those Israeli soldiers who are in the Gaza Strip will remain there indefinitely, because no one's going to move them out. So it's a very, I consider this a very dark day indeed for the people of Palestine. So Palestinian attackers stabbed an Israeli to death and wounded 3 more in the occupied West Bank today, before being shot down by troops in the latest violence to rock the occupied city, the Israeli military said. Obviously, I mean, sincerely, my condolences to the Israeli who lost their life, regardless of whatever it is, because I don't approve any loss of life. The attack follows a spate of settler violence against Palestinians across the West Bank. Officials, including US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, have warned that such unrest could spill over and undermine the fragile truce in Gaza. Well, why don't you, Marco, do something about the settlers? Why don't you tell Israel to stop settler violence in the West Bank, and maybe that would actually de-escalate tensions. Oh, you're not going to say that. Oh, okay, then shut the fuck up. Yeah, while telling them what by blaming Palestinians. Maybe you should look in the mirror, dickhead. It came a day after the UN Security Council gives its backing to US President Donald Trump's blueprint to secure and govern Gaza. Hamas rejects the plan, as other countries signaled excitement and readiness to help to implement it. This does not give the Palestinian people the rights to decide for their own future. The Israeli military said the stabbing took place at the Gosh-Ezkon junction south of Jerusalem, a site of many past attacks by Palestinian militias. Israel's emergency rescue service said a 71-year-old man died of stab wounds at the scene. I generally mean this again. I do sincerely mean my condolences. 3 other people were hospitalized, including a woman in serious condition and a teenager in moderate condition. The military said Israeli troops then opened fire, killing 2 Palestinian attackers. The Palestinian Health Ministry later identified them as 2 18-year-olds from the Hebron area. Yaron Rosseni, I can't say that name, head of the regional council of the Gush Eston settlement bloc, demanded Israel respond to the attack and provide more support for the area Israeli settlements. See, when an Israeli gets killed, it gives the state justification to do more attacks, to do more harm to Palestinians. Terrorism is fueled by the hope of a state, he said, connecting the violence to the Palestinian Authority and re-emerging push to advance the efforts to secure Palestinian statehood. Hamas did not reclaim responsibility to the attack, but in a statement it called it a normal response to the occupation's attempts to liquidate the Palestinian cause, vowing that Israeli aggression wouldn't go unchallenged. On Tuesday, Al Jazeera's local bureau chief said Israeli forces shot cameraman Andy Yasmin in both legs while he was covering a protest in the West Bank city of Turkmen. The military did not respond to a request for comment because they don't want footage coming out. That's why. The violence came a day after Israeli settlers launched a rampage through the Palestinian village of Al Jabita, torched homes and cars, drawing a rare condemnation for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other top Israeli leaders. The United States, Israel, and the Palestinian Authority praised the UN's vote on Trump's post-war Gaza plan. Hamas rejected it, saying the proposal security force would only help maintain Israel's grip on its territory. This is exactly my point. There is no deadline for when Israel can leave the territory, which is never now. The resolution provides a wider mandate for an international force to provide security in the war-devastated Gaza, approves a transactional authority to a border peace to be overseen by Trump, and visions a possible future path to an independent Palestinian state. Possible. Not certain. Possible. The plan calls for stabilization force to ensure the permanent decommissioning of weapons from non-state armed groups. You want them to completely disarm. That's not going to happen. It authorizes the force to use all necessary measures to carry out its mandate in compliance with the international law, which the UN language is used of military force. This is not going to work. Hamas said on Monday the force mandates, including disarmament, strips it of its neutrality and turns it into a party to the conflict in favor of the occupation. It said the resolution does not meet the level of our Palestinian people's political and humanitarian demands and rights. Hamas demand that any international force be under UN supervision, deployed only at Gaza's borders to monitor ceasefire, and operate exclusively with Palestinian institutions. The vote shores up hopes that Gaza's fragile ceasefire will be maintained following a war set off by Hamas, which blah, 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 we know all that stuff, da, 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 da. The European Union announced on Tuesday they will host a conference on Thursday for a new Palestinian donor group to discuss financial aid for the Gaza reconstruction, reforms of the Palestinian Authority and long-term peace in the Middle East. The US pledged in the past to help train police officers in Gaza and flood the war-torn coastal enclave with humanitarian aid. Guess what? You're not getting that aid in because Israel are not going to allow it. They're still not going to allow it now. European Commission spokesperson said that delegations from 60 entities, including the EU's 27 member states, some unnamed financial institutions, international organizations, and other countries will meet in Brussels. The meeting would be co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia. Another Commission spokesperson said that the UN Security Council resolution provides a basis into moving to the next phase, including work related to the International Stabilization Force and the Board of Peace. The UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper said on Tuesday that the international community need to work together to take forward the 20-point plan and turn it into a just and lasting peace. Cooper called for urgent action to open all the crossings, lift restrictions, and flood Gaza with aid. Again, not going to happen. Israel won't allow it. So this is apparently it. So cease, end to the fighting. Fighting has not ended! There have been bursts of deadly fighting. No, there have been bombings. There are bombings on a daily basis. This is bollocks. Hostages are returned. Hamas has released all deceased hostages. That is still true. Yep, this is the big one. Yeah, although groups are... aid is entering Gaza, although not the groups at level promised. Large-scale reconstruction Gaza hasn't started yet. So, IFS in early stage of creation, and there are questions about its feasibility. US will work with Arab countries and international partners to create the ISF. The temporary ISF will be immediately deployed to Gaza and train vetting Palestinian police forces. Temporary transitional government. Peace, border peace in early stage of creation. There are questions about its feasibility. Gaza will be governed under temporary governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for day-to-day running public service. It will be supervised by the Board of Peace, headed and chaired by President Donald Trump and other members. Hamas will have no role in the governance of Gaza. I agree Hamas should have no role, but Hamas disarms. Hamas has not given up weapons. No, of course not. Trump said members of the Board of Peace will be named in the coming weeks, along with many more exciting announcements. Yeah, see, it'll be interesting to see the names who are picked as well. The plan calls for stabilization troops to secure Gaza's border areas, along with the Palestinian force that they have trained and vetted. The force will coordinate with other countries to secure the flow of humanitarian assistance and should closely consult and cooperate with neighboring Egypt and Israel. As the international force establishes control, the resolution said Israeli forces will withdraw from Gaza based on standards, milestones, and timeframes linked to demilitarization. They must be agreed by the stabilization force, Israeli forces, the US, and the guarantors of the ceasefire, it said. The resolution said Israeli forces will withdraw from Gaza based on standards, milestones, and timeframes linked to demilitarization. But there's no time frame. There's no time frame here. There's no, like, what is not in this deal, what is not in any of this, which is what the thing that bothers me the most, is that there is no guarantee that they are going to leave Israel. There is no guarantee that they are going to leave. That's the thing that really upsets me more than anything on this story. There's no guarantee of it. None. Look, I mean this sincerely. Look, I want this to... Look, I generally mean this, okay? I want this to succeed. I want there to be peace. I want there to be stabilization. I want aid to be able to come in, and I want the Palestinian lives to come back to some kind of normality. I generally mean that, and I sincerely mean that. You know, I'm pleased that there is a ceasefire of sorts. Okay, I generally mean that. You know, but there is so many barriers that Israel are putting up right now. So many barriers, and I just cannot, like. Again, like I always say, to put yourself in the shoes of other people. And as much as I, you know, for Hamas, for what they did on October 7th, like, you have to look at it from their perspective here. Like, they want Palestine to have the Gaza Strip. They want to be able to decide their own future. And they cannot be allowed that. And that is the problem here. They cannot be allowed to choose their own freedom. They just want to be freed from the control of Israel. And the problem is, Israel does not want them having any freedom whatsoever. This is, I just don't buy any of it. I'm struggling to believe that this will work. I am struggling to believe it. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope somehow this works out. I really hope so, but I'm just not buying it. I really don't. Sass, thank you so much for the 199 super chat. Thank you so much for that. I hope you are doing well. Thank you so much. Good evening to you. Much appreciated. I don't believe the IDF will retreat, says Joe. No, I don't buy it for 1 second. I don't buy it for 1 second. It's not in the deal. There's no. It says they will withdraw, but it doesn't say when. So it can be forever. It can be forever. Religion and emotions are bad advisors. I always reset to logic and facts in case of doubt, says Joe. Religion should be progressive, says Chris Fisher. Many holy men have been deep studies of science. The two are the same in a sense to seek truth. Yes, that is true. Couldn't agree more with that, Chris. Couldn't agree more. Truth shall set you free. Yeah. The West moral high ground has been lost. We're now shouting from the valley about a morality we don't uphold, about democracies we don't have, and about values we have forgot. West has got to shake up, says Chris Fisher. Yeah. Yeah. I just think, I feel it's a bit of pearl. I do think a part of this is pearl clutching from the West, from the Western nations. I do feel like it's pearl clutching because here's the thing, right? The West wants us to stop talking about what's happening here. They want us to stop talking about here, not because they care about what's happening here. The main reason is political. Because what's happening here has deeply affected politics on a domestic level in many of these countries in the West. And they want us to stop talking about it. They want us to stop reading about it. They want us to stop producing videos about it. They want us to forget about what's happening in the Middle East. Before October the 7th, they want it to be back to that place. Yeah? So that even if atrocities start taking place, they don't want us hearing about it. They don't want us talking about it. They want to keep it quiet. Because we know, and we've seen it from even elections here in the UK, how upsetting it is what's happening in the Middle East. And Western politicians, Western leaders, it's not just about. I really don't think it's about caring about the Middle East. It's just trying to deflect people from it. They want people to focus on domestic issues and not focus about what's going on with the Middle East. I generally believe there is some truth to that. Because it affected them. It hurt them. In the US, it deeply affected the Biden administration. In the UK, we saw MPs getting kicked over it as well. I'm sure I obviously don't follow it as much as other nations in the EU, but I'm sure they all got affected in some way, shape or form by what's happened. And they want the conversation to stop. That's probably another reason why the mainstream media has not been talking too much about it as well, because they don't want them talking about it. So I haven't really covered the story, so let me touch on it here, guys. This one is from CNN. So Poland blames Russia after a rail track used to transport aid to Ukraine is destroyed by an act of sabotage. So straight off the bat, when I saw this headline, my first initial thought is, it has to be Russia, because from Russia's perspective, and we know how they've been acting with this conflict, and we will in this conflict. Do I generally believe Russia is responsible to this? I am pretty confident Russia are responsible to this, because from their perspective, they need Ukraine to fall. They're in a war here. So am I surprised at all that there's been blame on Russia? No. And do I think there's going to be more of this? Yes. The other thing I think is that I do wonder whether it was a good idea. Like, don't shoot the messenger here. I'm just saying this. Perhaps maybe it's not the wisest idea to transport aid via rail, because if you sabotage it, then it means the aid takes longer to get in. So I do think, yeah, I get the benefit of it. It's quicker, it's faster, and whatnot. I get that, but it also makes it a target for Russia. So personally, it should be done by vehicle. It should be done by vehicle or possible plane. It shouldn't be done by rail because you're making a target of the rail link. That's just my personal opinion. Some people may disagree. So Polish officials have pointed the finger at Russia after a key train track was destroyed in what Warsaw said was an unprecedented act of sabotage committed by 2 Ukrainian citizens who were collaborating with Russian service. So apparently 2 traitors, apparently. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said on Tuesday that the two perpetrators, who have fled to Belarus, were identified by the country's security services following intensive work. Tusk said on Monday that the train track between the Polish cities of Warsaw and Lublin was destroyed after an explosive device blew it up. Quote, "We are certain that the attempt to blow up the tracks and the violation of railway infrastructure was intentional and aimed at causing a catastrophic in rail traffic," the Polish leader said at the parliamentaries at the Sejm, Poland's parliamentary lower house. The established perpetrators are two Ukrainian citizens who have been collaborating with Russian services for some time. Their identities are known, he added. Tusk said earlier that the rail was critically important for delivering aid to Ukraine and that the attacks directly targeted the security of the Polish state and its civilians. Destruction was also identified along the same route further down the rail line, he said on Monday. Now, I think it's quite an interesting key point to here is that it's not actually Russian citizens. It's two Ukrainian citizens who were specifically responsible for this and have already fled to Belarus for this. However, there's another thing as well. We know that Russia have been poking Europe for some time, with Russian drones in many different parts of the country have been popping up, especially on the Baltic states. They've been appearing in Poland. We also know it wasn't too long ago they were in Brussels Airport in Belgium. Won't be long before a random drone appears in the UK and someone claims it's a Russian one as well. Though we know Russia are poking Europe. We know they're poking them. So the question is, how much poking are they going to do before Europe does something about this? The Kremlin rejected Tusk's claim of Russian collusion on city, citing Russophobia as the driving force behind the accusation. That's the best That's the best slang that can come up with, right? Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says Russia's being blamed for all manifestations of hybrid warfare through outright warfare taking place in Poland. Russophobia is flourishing here. Mate, you can't deny, if that is a main supply line that goes to aid toward the Ukrainian people, you can't argue that there's not something fishy there. Honestly. Rebuffing Poland's allegations, Peskov added, the very fact that Ukrainian citizens are again involved in acts of sabotage and terrorism against critical infrastructure is significant. If I were in the shoes of the Poles, the Germans or the French, I would think twice. They fled to Belarus. Okay? And for those who don't know, Belarus is a very big friendly face and a key ally of the Russian state. Literally, it's Russia's bitch, if you haven't sussed it out. But most of us here know that. But for those who don't. At a press conference on Monday afternoon, Poland's interior minister said that two separate incidents took place over the weekend. One confirmed an act of sabotage, and the one was deemed highly probable to be sabotage. No arrests have been made so far in relation to the incident. Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU Commission, said that threats to Europe's security are real and growing. The continent must urgently boost our capacity to protect our skies and our infrastructure, she said. Estonia's prime minister strongly condemned the damage to the train tracks, writing on X that the country stands with Poland. Those behind our hostile acts against the European Union and NATO members must be exposed. Our response must be united, Michal said. Ukraine's foreign minister also offered his country's solidarity with Poland, offering support if needed. He also suggested on Monday that Russia could have played a part in the incident. The Ukrainian government has not commented on the revelations that the two suspects were Ukrainian nationals. Several European countries, including the UK and Germany, have previously arrested, charged, and in some cases convicted Ukrainian nationals for Russian-ordered attacks. We hope the investigation will provide answers and also stand ready to assist if called upon. Could have been another hybrid attack to Russia. To test response, if true, they need to be strong. Tusk has vowed that his country will catch the perpetrators, whoever they are, without saying who they believe was responsible for the attack. The explosion, which did not cause any injuries, according to Tusk, is the latest in a string of incidents in Europe that have left the continent on high alert. That's the other thing as well. I'm just glad nobody was injured or killed, to be fair there. It just means that aid is going to be a bit slow, unfortunately. Wales, good to see you there. I hope you are doing well. And anybody else I haven't said hello to. Several European nations have reported incursions into the airspace in recent months. The most pointing to the finger at Russia. The Kremlin has denied involvement. Earlier this month, the European Commission adopted stricter rules on issuing visas to Russian nationals, citing safety risks relating to Russia's war on Ukraine as a reason for doing this. We now face unprecedented drone disruption and sabotage on our soil. We have a duty to protect our citizens, Kalakalis, the EU's foreign policy chief, said in a statement. A research paper by the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the IISS, suggested that Russia is carrying out a campaign of sabotage, vandalism, espionage, and covert actions to destabilize European governments. Probably trying to do that as quietly as possible, I think, is what they're trying to do. Incidents within this alleged campaigns include the deliberate damaging of undersea cables, the targeting of telecommunications towers, and arson pilots, the IISS has also said. The Deputy Interior Minister said that his country has been confronted with various acts of sabotage for some time. Yep. Last year, an enormous fire destroyed a shopping centre in Warsaw. Polish authorities announced in May that it was a result of arson ordered by Russian intelligence service. Russia denied any allegations of orchestrating arson and sabotage across Europe. While someone may have damaged the train track, he also warned that against immediately assigning to blame Russia, PAP reported. Russia is not so powerful that every arson, every situation of this type is provoked by Russia. However, this cannot be ruled out or underestimated in any way, he said, according to PAP. Yeah, I think you got to be careful. I do think we have Poland and other countries as well. Just need to be a little bit careful in that you can't just assume that every single thing is by Russia. Some of it will, some of it won't. The problem is not. You won't know for certain. Well, I would say just to be a little bit careful. But obviously the train track one seems very obvious to me. Countries' internal security agencies working alongside police, the prosecutor's office, and railway service to investigate the matter. Polish politician said on X. Polish National Security Committee will hold a meeting today with military commanders, heads of service, and the president, representatives in attendance. Stuff said. They have quite a large army, to be fair, Poland as well. So I'm not quite sure what they can kind of do here, because all they can do is just point the finger and say it's Russia's fault. But we honestly just don't know for sure. If you know, we just don't know for sure. So it's kind of hard, but like I said, I just think, yeah, I understand the using of rail networks, but I personally think they should be using vehicles instead in this situation, just because of just because the rail tracks can be used as targets there, you know. It's only my opinion. So, although there have been a hell of a lot of Russian sabotage acts every night in Russia, burning train signal boxes, says Wales there as well. I'm guessing those Ukrainians are from Donbass at Luhansk. That's probably a good point as well. Yeah, that is probably a good point there. They even tried to spy here in one of our bases when we were gathering supplies, ammo, vests, campaign, hospitals. And last year, Russia has always been good at spying and stealing tech. Yeah. At least they teach kids to be smart about it when online. Talking about something else there, I'm assuming. Yeah. And you guys talking about something else, I think, there as well. Some things need to go via rail. And airplanes. Yeah, I know. It's because of the infrastructure. The infrastructure makes it easier and quicker. I get that point. I do get that point. You know, I'm just trying to think of a perspective of how to less likely to be avoided a sabotage. Now, how can it less likely to avoid sabotage? I'm trying to think of it from that perspective, you know. But anyway, the most important thing is no one was killed, no one was harmed, during that. However, as for the war itself, guys, it's not good. Why is my screen like that? Hold on a second, let me just check something. Oh, that's why I've got it like that. Right, I see. Oh, that's a bit jammy. Yeah, you're not going to be able to see here. So we'll have a look at the Kiev Independent here. You're not going to be able to see from your side. I do apologise, but if I open them up, we can have a look. So it says here on the news feed on the left-hand side, Poland says 2 Ukrainians tried to sabotage the railway. It says Zelensky is to visit Turkey to reinvigorate stalled negotiations with Russia there. Front page here from Poseidon to Kiskil, why Russia's superweapon may matter less with Kremlin than the Kremlin claims. Ukraine to purchase 100 Rafale jets, Zelensky says after signing defense declaration with Macron. That's very good. Russian troops spotted north of Proskyt's military confirms. A screenshot video posted on the 7th of rapid recreation corpses of Ukraine's Air Forces on November the 18th, showing Russian troops outside Proskyt in Donetsk Oblast. Russian troops have been spotted outside the northern outskirts of Proskyt in Donetsk Oblast. Yeah. They're losing Donetsk. You know, it's more than 75% of the territory has been taken by and we'll have a look at the deep state map in a bit. They've lost more than 75%. I think it's like 80% now of the territory is now under Russian occupied control. It's not good. It's really, really not good there. What else they got here? Congress legislation. Congress to move on legislation on Russian sanctions bill following Trump's blessing, US Senator Graham says. Oh, let's have a quick look. This is the Verve story. The United States Congress will renew its efforts to move forward in an attempt to pass a Russian sanctions bill into law. Lindsey Graham announced yesterday. Very pleased to challenge Trump's blessing. Congress will now be moving the overwhelming bipartisan Russian sanctions bill that provide President Trump more tools to end the bloodbath in Ukraine. He wrote on social media, the initial proposed bill sought to impose 500% tariffs on imports from countries purchasing Russian oil, gas, uranium, and other products. Although it was not immediately clear as to what restrictions would be imposed on the latest version of the bill. 500%, guys. Okay. Signed by 84 co-sponsors, Senator Lindsey Graham established 3 first proposals of the bill that would impose sanctions on Russian trading partners. And during the White House asked Graham to insert waivers into the bill, allowing Trump to choose which entities to get sanctioned and changing the word shall to may. US President Donald Trump appealed to signal the witness on November 16th, moved to the bill. When asked by reporters whether Trump wants Congress to move on with the legislation, Trump replied, I hear they're doing that. That's okay with me. Unnamed White House official confirmed to Reuters on Tuesday that plans to back the legislation, noting that they want specific language ensuring Trump retains control over the sanctions. Legislation is designed to give President Trump more flexibility and power to push Putin into peace by going after Putin and countries like Iran and support him, Graham wrote. Graham and one of the Congress' staunchest supporters of Ukraine attempts to force a vote on the overwhelming bipartisan bill. Despite his efforts, Trump reportedly pressured senators to soften the sanctions deal in an effort to negotiate a ceasefire with the Kremlin. The bill was never brought to a vote before the Senate amid Trump's pressure campaign. So the one thing, Graham, the one thing I'll give Graham credit for is on this bill. Although I still don't like him, and you shouldn't like him just because of this bill, guys. Just want to make that clear. What else is there here? Poland pre-war period aimed at increase Russian sabotage effects, says top Polish general. Czech's dilemma: Ukrainian ammunition program in limbo as populist coalition takes power in Prague. As Republican loans talk stall, EU proposes €90 billion grant to cover Ukraine's financing needs. They're not going to be able to ever pay back the cost for this. Russian missile strikes Koloff blast, killing a teenage girl, injuring 9 people. Teenage girl this morning. Dame, again, it's good to see you there. I hope you are doing well. Countries doing business with Russia to be severely sanctioned. Mike Pompeo joins the advisory board of scrutinizing Ukraine's defense firm Firepoint. This is some of the Kiev Independent there. Let's have a look at the deep state map before we go to our funny memes. So for those who don't know, links in the description. This is the deep state map. Let me just zoom out. Geography-wise, just so people can see. That is Ukraine, because it says Ukraine. The badge is Kiev, because that's where the capital is. The colouring in green is where Ukraine pushed back and liberated a few years ago when they did their counterattack. The red is territory that they have seized from Ukraine. The purple was the territory. The purple is, for example, Crimea, which was annexed by Russia in 2014, and these territories here, which they kind of rebelled on their own without the help of Russia there, because they were more pro-Russian than pro-Ukrainian there, just for reference there. So if I zoom out just a little bit here, you can see this. I don't know how well you can see it here, but I don't have the cursor up here, but I'll zoom in a little bit. So you see this dotted line right in the front of the center of the screen there, where it says Slovarak and Kamarowski there. You can see the dotted jittered line there. That's pretty much what's left of Donetsk here. And if I zoom back out again, you see this is what's left of Donetsk. That is under Ukrainian control. And that territory is slowly being ebbing away here. And let me just see the Kursk region here. They're making some pushes here. Okay, they're making some pushes here. That's not good. They pushed some of it back, but yeah, they're making pushes here. That's not good. The rest of the territory they're managing the whole, but yeah. So last year they made some ground in the Russian territory, and they pushed back. And not only that, Russians have made some gains there. That's not looking good there. We know that Ukraine have been making strikes in Belgorod city, and this town here, Belgorod. I've had reports of that in the past there. It looks like they're trying to make some ground here. Russia there. If I just pull back a couple of days, see not too much movement here. It seems they are trying to make engagements, trying to push forward here from the looks of it here. Let's have a look here. There seems to be a lot of pushing here. How much of this has changed? Okay, this has been daily. Looks like last couple of days they've made some ground here. Yeah, last couple of days they've made ground towards Linman there. Looks like another village. Yeah, there's another village that's fallen to Russia there, unfortunately. Yeah, it's not good there. It's not good at all. Yeah, they're making Chasavars fallen already. Yeah, I remember they used to make grounds in that in the past as well. It's not good there. So here's where the most push is. Some of you guys may be here. So I'm going to just pull it to right now. I'm going to set the date to. So right now what you're seeing, this is the date. This is the 8th of November, right? So every push and movement you'll see is one more day. So the city hasn't fallen yet. Prospects, but it's pretty close to falling to, and you can see here it's eventually going to fall. But if I start moving the days forward, so this is the 9th, this is the 10th, this is the 11th, this is the 12th, this is the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. This is yesterday. So you can see here they are struggling. Here's where the most combat is taking place here. They're still holding onto the city, but in terms of other spots here, you can see the grey spots where it's kind of like undecided. So it's very hard to read. And obviously, Russia wants to control this major supply route, which is the main road here. You can see the road here. They're trying to gain ground on that road because that's to be a supply line there for Ukraine. So yeah. And the blue there, for those who are curious, that's territory that they've pushed Russia back on. So Russia made gains here, but they got pushed back. So that's what that blue is there for people who are just curious here. Other parts here, have they made some ground on this side? They haven't made too much here from the looks of it. No. So they haven't made too much ground here, but they've made slight, very, very tiny, but nothing as much as over here. So it's mainly over on this side. This is where most of the intense fighting is taking place here. How much movement have they been making here? Let's have a look for days. Just scroll back a couple of days. Still scrolling back. Okay, there's been some tiny movement. Tiny movement. Okay, most of this is kind of holding. Not really too much movement here. Slight gains from Russia, but nothing too big here. Nothing too big there. Zoom a bit further out here. Let's have a look at some of the other gains here. Just going to zoom out again. Just see, pull it back by a couple of days. Yeah, there has been some ground gained on this side as well here. So it looks like they made some ground here, Russia as well. And then if we move a bit further, so it looks like, oh, have they been making ground here, or has that just been still? Nope, doesn't look like there's been much movement there. So, and then obviously this part here, for people who don't know, this is the Dynamo River here, where Ukraine kind of hold the river here. They can't really cross over here, so that's the one thing they're saving grace, and they obviously took that back when the counter-attack they did there, just for reference there. So the Dynamo River is kind of there. Zaporizhzhia is obviously the city they want to get control of here. Ukraine would love to, Russia would love to get control of this city. It would be a major gain in the future. It's still well off from that, but that is, Zaporizhzhia does get targeted quite a lot there. So that is the current situation on the ground there. And no signs, of course, of any change right now, of any kind of peace deal or anything else, unfortunately, there, guys. Let me have a quick look in the chat. Zelensky's not very smart, though, unless he's involved stealing money. Three of his top fraudsters are now hiding abroad. Yeah, I do think a lot of money is not going. I do think a lot of money is just disappearing as well that we're providing to Ukraine as well. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Just have one thing to say: Russia is crumbling, and wherever they're getting, it's not worth it. It's periodic progress. What's been periodic progress has been going on for ages. It's going on for ages and ages and ages. But you know, they don't give the numbers of how many Russian lives have lost. You know, we know it's more than 1 million. I know it's more than 1 million. Continuing after the US had to stop doing it when they first did it. So yeah. Right, guys. The most important part of this show, which is what everyone comes here for, the main reason why everyone's here, it's not for the news. It's for the funny memes. That's why you guys are really here. I've got 5 funny memes for you guys. I hope you guys get a bit of a laugh out of these of some sorts, because we kind of need it. Kind of need a bit of a laugh here and there. So I've got 5 for you here. Let me just get one set up. Let me just see if I can actually... Oh, dear. Are you going to play this game with me, computer? Thank you. Can you let me switch screens? Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Might be able to get away with not actually having to come in and out. We'll see. Okay. Make sure I've got the setting on. Right. Here are your funny memes. Hopefully you get a laugh out of these. So what bug is this? It's a Mosquito i7, 12th generation, 64GB RAM, RTX 3060. Well, you wanted to know what bug it was, and there you go. Guys, I don't think my grandpa is going to make it. What is he making? That's just cruel. Just cruel. Once I'm elected, I will become a vegetarian. This is like this reminds me of Nigel Farage surrounded by people. And you just replace Nigel Farage with a bunch of Reform voters around him. It's the exact same thing. This is exactly what I think of. When you tell your mum a joke and it turns out to be a lecture. Just trying to be funny, and all you're going to do is lecture me. And last but not least, just caught my tomatoes trying to sneak out. Dun, dun, dun. Can you believe it? The cheek of these tomatoes trying to get away. You thought you could catch... We thought we could sneak away, but we saw it. You saw it trying to get away. How dare you try to get... You've been caught! Terrible. I can't believe they thought they could make a run for it, but we caught them. We caught those tomatoes. The Cherry Walker. The Cherry Walker. Good one, Joe. Cherry Walker indeed. So, guys, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's come along tonight. Thank you to... thank you, Sass, for the $1.99 super chat tonight. So it wasn't entirely... So I got a super chat. It wasn't obviously the super chat goal, but that's fine. That's fine. People were very generous this morning on the Good Morning Show anyway. So thank you for that $1.99 super chat, Sass. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys all for coming here. Really do appreciate it. I'll be back live again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for another Good Morning Show. If you can't make that one, do join me for the Reganelite watch along tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And I might have something for you guys. I do have a live stream planned on Thursday. I haven't put it in yet, but I might have something for you guys. I'm thinking about doing another series with somebody once a month as well. We have our series with One Angry Pagan. I might have another series I'm thinking of doing with another person, perhaps once a month from next year, that we could look into potentially. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, so I'm definitely this Thursday. I'm going to try. If I don't get the the person I want, I'll get another guest on and we'll talk about what's been happening with Labour and whatnot, guys. But thank you guys again. But on your way out, just before you go, guys, if you can for me, please hit that like button. Be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Check out Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content. There is links for them down below because I do content on them. So if you guys check them out, we greatly appreciate it. Reminder that Geoscopes will be going live on Politics Social with Graham Hughes and Bowler Hatman. And at 8:30, will be Max Crosby will be going live on his live stream unless something changes there as well. So if you guys want to check out those live streams or any others for that matter, there's plenty of great YouTubers out there as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.